And hello, hi, welcome along. This is Kathy Frey from INCO, from the International Integrative Maternity Healthcare Organisation. And welcome along to this week's webinar. And very pleased to introduce Kirsty Van Rooyen today. Kirsty, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Nice to be
Welcome
here. Thank you,
along. We've got
Kathy.
a really good practical topic to be talking about today, and that's reflexology. And reflexology is one of those areas of naturopathic therapies that, we just can't, nobody perceives it as being harmful. And, it's a very complementary therapy. And I've certainly seen it used incredibly effectively for a lot of aspects of maternity health, that's for sure. But I'm not a reflexology expert, so I'm going to hand you over to Kirsty. And Kirsty is a clinical reflexologist, and she works in private practice in the heart of the city of Dunedin in New Zealand. And Dunedin is one of the southernmost cities, so it's probably a bit chilly there at the moment. And she'll go over, her own background as well. But she's got extensive clinical experience and really gained, quite a broad knowledge of reflexology and how that modality can assist, with a person, not just physically and mentally, but also emotionally. And her sort of specialization as such has been into maternity reflexology, which she's obviously going to be talking about today, and as well as training within the treatment of pain using reflexology for fibromyalgia and other autoimmune diseases. So look, welcome along, Kirsty. Thank you. And I'm going to basically hand over to Kirsty, and she's got information that she will impart. And for those of you that are here live, I know that we have a lot of you that watch later on, but those that are live, if you have any particular questions for Kirsty, feel free to just type them in at the Q&A button that should be at the bottom of your screen. So welcome, Kirsty.
Thank you, Kathy, and really pleased to be here. So just a little bit about my background. People often ask me, how did I become a reflexology practitioner? What made you choose reflexology? How did you get into it? So I have these questions sort of all the time. Why did I become a clinical reflexologist? So clinical is really referring to the fact that it is health focused. It is more than just a relaxation therapy, which of course it is, but it's health based as well. So, and I'm very interested in the body and how it works. So sometimes I give different answers to those questions, but I just wanted to give you a wee bit of initial background. I became interested in reflexology as a holistic modality many years ago. I'd always been interested in natural health care, been drawn to it. And I was interested in how the body worked. I was fascinated with herbal medicines, anything natural that kind of interested me. And I would always look into natural ways of healing for myself rather than take doctor's orders. I'm sure I had a big alert across my health records with various doctors. Doesn't take her medicine, won't follow instructions, that type of thing. But just a little, this is what actually happened. And it is a really interesting story. And it really led me to becoming a reflexology practitioner. So the first time I had any reflexology treatment was in 2007, so 16 years ago, and I had no idea what I was receiving. I was heading to Europe to see my family. I'd been working solidly, like right up until the time I drove to the airport and hopped on a plane. I was feeling tired already before 2 long-haul flights, and I arrived at Singapore sort of halfway there with a thumping headache. I had aching muscles. I was in pain. I was so tired. I felt terrible. I was already exhausted with another 12-hour flight to come. So here I was in transit at Changi Airport. Looking around, I found a health spa, and I remember I went in there and said, please help me because I feel lousy and I have this terrible headache. And this little darling non-English speaking lady pointed me to a chair, put my feet in a tub of warm water, I fell asleep immediately. And when I woke up, I had no recollection of any kind of treatment. I didn't even know what this little lady had done to me. I said, "Thank you. I don't remember you massaging my head. You did a great job. My headache is gone, and I'm very grateful." And she said to me, "I only touched your feet." So I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I didn't even know what it was I received. I felt great. I felt clear in my head, no aches and pains, and bounding with energy. Later on, I did a bit of research, read some books, and had heard of reflexology and became intrigued with this mysterious magical treatment I'd received, and got into reflexology. And then I really needed to follow that through. So quite a few years later, after working in the corporate environment for quite a lot longer, I'd really had enough. And I decided this is what I wanted to do. At one morning, a voice pretty much came into my head and said loud and clear, reflexology. And it was more a feeling that I felt, or within my being, if you like, reflexology. And I kind of couldn't ignore that. So I went ahead and did my training, my NZQA diploma in reflexology, the International ITEC diploma in reflexology, and quite a few postgraduate courses as an advanced clinical reflexologist. So, and then I had the opportunity, marvelous opportunity, to engage with an incredible trainer, Mauricio Kruchik, who's based in Israel, and he runs a lot of different reflexology courses, but this one was advanced maternity reflexology. And I did that workshop in Perth in Australia in 2016, and that just opened up a new experience for me, new learning experience. And that was actually really amazing. So briefly about reflexology, if you're not aware of it, the principles are very complementary. It's not alternative treatment. It works in integrated focus. So my approach to reflexology is clinical, but holistic with it. And it's about how to reduce anxiety, managing stress, and helping people understand their bodies, the wonderful ways it works to serve us. And I believe that the body has an ability to heal itself, given the right conditions, and pathways to healing can be discovered when we are ready for that. So my aim with maternity reflexology is to reduce discomfort that comes with being pregnant, anxiety and stress incurred by the mother, to engage with the developing baby, and to encourage a normal, healthy birth to take place. And I mean, I really see it as a privilege, a real privilege, to work with maternity clients. Reflexology recognises the hormonal changes associated with pregnancy, the physiological changes, anatomical changes, metabolic, fatigue and discomfort are often a factor. So reflexology works with the nervous system. So I'm working with a person's feet. There are times when I work with their hands as well, or instead of the feet, but generally I do foot reflexology. And it works through the parasympathetic nervous system, which is sort of the counterbalance to the sympathetic nervous system, which is activated when we're under stress. So the part of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for calming the whole body. So it's important to sort of tell you a wee bit about that. And I work to bring the body back to homeostasis, brings us back to feeling less stressed, and able to function, and able to think straight, and all that type of thing. So I mean, it's normal for us to have heightened stress levels at times, but it's also normal for these stress levels to reduce, and it's sort of part of that cycle. So when we're talking about stress levels in relation to being pregnant, anxiety, huge factor. There could be a lot of different reasons for that. Just things like physical changes within the body, hormonal changes, things like time pressures, trying to cope with the normal routine, running the household and the family, and the need to continue to work while you're pregnant. Just the responsibility, the knowledge that your body is changing, you're carrying another little person, totally dependent on you to bring them into the world. So there's some anxiety around that quite frequently. It may also be some uncertainty around whether the pregnancy is happening at the right time for the mother, and was this planned, or how will it affect our lives? She might be a new mum, very, very concerned, worried about whether or not she might lose the baby, or the cause of the stress may be the pregnancy itself and the unknown. So there's a lot of things. There's lack of sleep, very common due to discomfort, back pain, positioning, trying to get comfortable. So there's a lot of techniques for addressing the different areas of discomfort that come with pregnancy. For example, assisting with sleeping. Often I'll have a mum to be coming to my clinic who just hasn't had quality of sleep for quite some time. She will probably fall asleep immediately and easily on my massage table here, and it's a really deep sleep. So I'll work with her probably for about 40 minutes, and say to her initially, you'll want to change position. So just please give me an indication when you want to turn to one side or turn to the other side. For all other reflexology treatments, the person is lying on their back. When they are in probably from the mid stages of sort of second trimester of the pregnancy, they'll be on their side. So I'm working with the feet sort of like that and like that, rather than like that, if you get my meaning. So there's a lot of different things that will affect lack of sleep. Back pain is one of them. Back pain can be reduced by specific techniques, which we call, I call it stretching the spine. So it's actually drawing out the discomfort out of the spine that where all the nerves are attached to, if you like, in the central nervous system. So it's really just calming those nerves, calming the whole back, the spine, and any sort of inflammation that may have come around, which is, I guess, one of the big things in reflexology. It's about reducing inflammation. So, and that can be done in all parts of the body. So when you're looking at when I'm looking at a person's feet, different parts of the foot correspond to different parts of the body. So there's certain places where I will put pressure and a little bit of soothing. It may be holding in certain places. It's quite often I'll hold in more than one place at once. I'm linking it to also the endocrine system, the hormonal system. So in particular, we have back pain. It's important to link that to the pain receptors in our brain, which are part of the pituitary gland. So when I'm holding the pituitary with one hand and holding for example, the lumbar, the lower back with the other thumb and forefinger, that helps to reduce that back pain. So it is sort of quite magical, but it really works. And it's very accurate. So I'm feeling with my hands all along the bony arch of the foot, which represents the spine, and feeling where those little areas are that represent discomfort. So I can tell where there's inflammation. I can tell where there's just areas of discomfort and pain. I actually feel it in my hands. So when I link that with the pain receptors and get that whole nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system to work properly, it reduces that stress. So I've worked with a number of clients that have had really chronic back pain, that have had significant concerns with sleeping. So what we can do with reflexology is that we can bring them into the clinic on a weekly basis. And that sort of helps with changing the pattern of not getting enough sleep into one where it's more rested and she can sleep. They can come more frequently if they like. There are times when they're not actually able to leave the house or they're just too fatigued, so I can go to them. I don't do it terribly frequently, but that is still possible. I know of other people, that other reflexologists within my network that would go to the house maybe in the late afternoon just for 15 minutes, maybe every day or every couple of days, if that's the case. So there's ways in which we can give special treatment to our maternity clients. There's some lovely stories as well, where when I look at a person's feet, I can actually see and feel the baby. So that is represented in the uterus, and there is, I can actually see and feel where the baby is starting to form right from the early days, and then where it changes position a little bit, and then certainly in the third trimester, it's right up pushing against the diaphragm. So we have pressure on the diaphragm, we have pressure on the bowels, but we can actually see it on the foot, which is amazing. So it's all about, and I can say to a mum, oh, there's your baby. And I think, wow, this is different. But yeah, it's really quite noticeable. If I look at a foot of a person who's not pregnant and one that is pregnant, there's quite a significant difference. So, and it is on both feet. There's another thing we talk about, which is the swelling that comes with being pregnant. So there's reasons why the body takes on additional fluid, because it needs to protect the baby, it needs to protect the joints. Sometimes the increase in fluid is too much. Fluid retention becomes very painful. So probably about week 28 or 29, the edema may start. And that's often brought on by a lack of movement and reduced activity. And it can be a bit of a vicious cycle, because the more the ankles become swollen and the feet become swollen, the back becomes sore, the less she feels like moving, and she doesn't want to go for a walk, and it's just all a bit hard, gets more tiresome. So I quite often see people at that stage. So it's really about, and that can also start constipation, which can lead to hemorrhoids as well. So as I said, it's a bit of a vicious cycle. It's like we want to get her back moving and walking, but when the pain's there, it's hard. And when there's when there's increased swelling, it's really hard. So then there's certain treatments that I will do to reduce the swelling and the fluid retention. And this takes quite some time. So this would probably take a good hour, 60 to 80 minutes, working on the feet, working on the dorsal on the top side of the feet and all around the ankles, gently moving that. We can move that fluid so that it starts to move around the lymphatic system and be more, so the ankles become more mobile. Working with feet, and there's a lot of different techniques that I use for that, but that's a really good way of reducing that swelling, that additional swelling to what it should be. So then there's more mobility in the ankles. Then she's able to stand up. She's able to think, oh, this is not so bad. We might want to go for a walk. Wanting to go for walks is a really good thing. Keeping active is a really good thing. Constipation is another thing that is all, I guess, it's all part of that same sort of cycle. And that can often happen due to lack of movement, or insufficient water intake, or could be diet, it could be a lot of things, but often it's lack of movement has got something to do with it, because she really needs to be moving a whole body, you know. So when we walk, it's not just our legs that are doing the walking, it's the whole body that's doing the walking. So when there's a lot of pressure, just talking now about constipation and how that plays a part. So when there's a lot of pressure on the bowels and she's increasing in size, the uterus is increasing in size, it's getting heavier, there's a lot of pressure there. And then because of the pressure, it's not so easy to pass the bowel motions, a lot of straining, and then we may well end up with hemorrhoids as well. So again, there's reflexology treatments that help with constipation and helping the bowels move regularly. And that can be done every few days, once a week, just, you know, whenever it is actually required. So I'm working around the mid part of the foot. I'll show you my hands, so around in here, okay, and on both hands. So working around the large intestine, the small intestine, which is all around here. If we look at the hands again, the bony arch of the foot is like that, okay, the foot, pretend that's the foot, okay, so working around in here and in the large intestine. When there's a lot of constipation and there's been a lot of straining and the mum has not reached out for any help to me, she may have already had some hemorrhoids forming. They can be internal or external hemorrhoids, very, very painful. Again, it just makes things a whole lot worse. So there are specific treatments that I can use to help with the hemorrhoids and reducing that inflammation around the anus, around the rectum, yes, so there's again specific techniques for maternity. When I'm working with people that have got the edema, the constipation, the hemorrhoids, it's what I normally do is ask them to bring along their own water bottle, and they drink water at the time. So that's all part of getting that fluid to move through properly. So remembering that drinking water is really important for bowel motions. Our motions are 80% water. So if you don't have enough water going in, it makes them tight and dry and difficult to pass. So you might think, so if there's increased fluid, increased water in the body, how does that not help with constipation? Well, actually it doesn't, because it's in the wrong places. So we end up with stagnated lymphatic systems, which doesn't help the fluid move through properly. So lymphatic system is filtering the wastes from our cells. And they get filtered through the lymph nodes. The wastes get passed out through the kidneys, okay, through the urinary system, and then the purified fluid goes back into our bloodstream. So it's important to keep the blood volume up as well. So you can see that it's really a whole body treatment. I'm working with various body systems. So although I'm putting pressure on parts of the feet that correspond to certain parts of the body, I'm also working with the body systems. So the lymphatic system and the digestive system, the reproductive system, the hormonal system, endocrine system. So it's also important to address anxiety and stress. So that's within our neurological, our whole, how we feel about each other, about ourselves, how we're feeling about the baby, how we're feeling about our body, you know. So there's a lot that I can do with reducing anxiety. And I do that on an everyday basis, every single day in my clinic with everyone that comes in. There is some, stress is such a prominent factor in so many disorders that I work with that every time. Every treatment I'm looking at stress. Every time I'm looking at, is the current stress, has there been historical stress, what are the factors. I don't need to ask what the factors are. I don't need to ask what the triggers are, but I can feel within the feet that there's stress within the body. So our bodies are wonderful things. They, after a period of what we would call chronic stress, which may be 6 months or so, is generally the parameters, our body starts to hang on to stress longer than it should. So even when we might feel, oh, look, actually, I'm not even worried about this. This is really good. I'm past all that. You know, that was worrying me sort of last year, but it's not anymore. Our body does tend to hang on to that stress. So, and that's quite notable. And it tends to rear its head at times when we don't want it to. So, a new change in the life, becoming pregnant, changes in might be all sorts of changes, might be financial changes, might be how to cope with family or working or whatever. There's a lot of stress that's in there. And there could be, we need to recognize that there could be historical factors in there that have been brought about by other things prior to this. So it could have been, there's a lot of different factors that could trigger that sort of stress emotion again. And so it's it's important that I can recognize that as well. So I will have often have discussions. I always do a consultation before any treatment. Certainly at least 30 to 40-minute consultation before a new client. And then we're talking at every other treatment before and after to see what's happening. And often things will come out, say, oh gosh, yes, I did have a period of stress a couple of years ago or 10 years ago or something like that. So things like that, or even things like accidents where the body hasn't been healed properly, things like that can affect the current. So when you have a new situation, becoming pregnant, going to bring a new person into the world, historical stress can play a part. So it's very, very interesting the different types of things that can come to light when she's expecting her baby. Another thing I just wanted to touch on is carpal tunnel syndrome. So this is a swelling in the carpal tunnel that can happen when you are pregnant, stemming from the median nerve in the brachial plexus, which is up under the in the diaphragm kind of area. So that's affecting the arms and the shoulders, and that median nerve goes right down the anterior part of the forearm. Can be really, really painful and tingling or numbing. Sometimes as far as right down into the palm of the hand and the fingers, and right up to the elbows. So again, specific techniques to reduce the inflammation in that carpal tunnel and in that median nerve. There's just thinking, is there any questions or anything so far that comes to light from what I've talked about?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. What would be the commonest complaints that you would see from women in pregnancy? So obviously, puffy feet.
Yeah.
You would see that because you're dealing with the feet, so they're right there in front of you. But what's the other things that people may be surprised that reflexology can fix or help to reduce the symptoms of in pregnancy? So I guess what would be sort of like your half dozen top complaints that you have women come in with?
I think really fatigue would be the biggest one.
Yeah.
Fatigue is right up there. It's like we know that if we have a night where we only sleep 3 or 4 hours, that's time. We feel terrible the next day. So if you have night after night after night, coupled with running your family, coupled with other children that are needing to be looked after, husband needs to be looked after, work that needs to be done, groceries that need to be, like, so with that fatigue, that's very, very tiring. And then not being able to sort of think straight. So often when people reach out to me, they really are quite desperate.
Right.
Yeah, they're quite
You're
desperate.
kind of the ambulance at the end of the cliff.
Yeah,
And I
often.
think
Yeah.
that can often
Yeah.
be the situation with integrative, healthcare, isn't it? That it's seen
Yeah.
as not so much complementary as like a desperate alternative. And
Yeah.
I know, say for it, particularly our medical herbalists, where a lot of them sort of end up specializing in infertility or subfertility,
Yeah.
and people haven't gone to them first, they've gone to them last,
Yeah, that's the thing.
kind
That's
of
the
thing,
thing.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And and that is the our whole thing here, I guess, at IMCO is, trying to sort of educate that this shouldn't be your last cab off the rank.
Exactly.
Think of it as your
Exactly.
first cab off the rank. I have got obviously with dealing with hundreds or thousands of women over the years, I've had because I am quite obviously holistically minded myself, so I've had lots of clients that have used reflexology over the years. But one of the I will tell you a funny story, but I had one particular client who just blew me away with
Yeah.
how much effort they put in and the phenomenal results that they got. And
Yeah.
what happened was that this was an advanced maternal age lady. This is her first baby. She was in her early 40s. It was she hadn't suffered from infertility. She had just basically had a life of busy with her career, and then she
Yeah.
kind of hit 40 and went, oh my God, no, I do want to have
This
kids,
is the time.
one of those nuts.
Yeah.
And but she was very, very alternative kind of thinking and very holistically minded anyway.
Yeah.
So everything to do with her pregnancy was going to be using integrative medicine, that was for sure. But what the story I'm getting to is that when she went into labor, and I would often encourage that the partners would learn a little bit, that the birth support partner would learn a little bit of reflexology points that
Yeah.
would assist with the labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this couple had it nailed. They were probably official sort of positional names or whatever on her feet, but I can't remember what, but it was things like she would say she would just be deep in her contraction and she'd go B2, B2, C1, or and they just had this team going on.
All
And
right.
I have to tell you, her labor was phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, like it really was. Now,
And
and
I
I
have to,
deal with a lot of women who labor very well because we
yeah.
put so much effort in. Um,
Yeah.
and her level of calmness and control was outstanding
Wow.
for a
Yeah.
woman of her age,
Yeah.
because oftentimes we see that those 40-year-old first-time mums are super high anxiety mothers.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just amazing. I sort of stood back and
Yeah.
watched
It's
this whole
amazing.
coordination of her and her
Yeah.
partner, and it was beautiful,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. She also was a woman who caught her own baby.
Oh, did she? Oh,
Yeah,
did she?
she was crouched on the bed,
Yeah.
so her knees right up by her head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when that baby came out, she just, I mean, I was looking at it going, grab it. Like,
Yeah,
she
why shouldn't
didn't need
she?
me. Yeah, I was right there, but it didn't need me.
Yeah.
And she just literally just lifted her baby up to herself. It was
Oh,
amazing.
that's amazing. I mean, and why shouldn't she? That's the most natural thing. But Kathy, I have to ask you, did she have B1 and C2 and everything written on her feet? Were there little pen marks? Were there
No,
little, or did he have a map?
No.
Oh, they've been doing it for ages then.
Yes.
Yes,
They had really
excellent,
been practicing
excellent. I
that.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a point. No, nothing was written on her feet,
Yeah.
and
Look,
they just both
yeah.
knew it.
I really
Um,
encourage people to ask their partners to work with their feet. And I show the woman, these are the points he needs to work with. Just get him to hold your feet and then get him to move his thumbs, just get him to do certain things, and this will
yeah,
help. Yeah,
and
because I can't
it's
be with
not
her all the
something
time.
you
No,
can't do that for yourself in the
no,
same
no,
way. Not when you're in the middle of
no,
a contraction.
no, no,
But you need
no.
somebody else to be doing it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen a lot of couples use reflexology in labor, but this particular one, I'll never forget them because it was
that's amazing.
just absolutely
Yeah,
stunning.
yeah, yeah,
And she, as I say, her level of calmness, um, I think that the results of the reflexology definitely impacted her ability to not feel anxious.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but it gave her a level of control over things
yeah.
that
And
as
that's
well,
wonderful. Yeah, that's
yeah.
wonderful.
And
Yeah,
amazing, very, very rapid labor,
yeah.
rapid, fabulous dilatation, fantastic pushing, and amazing. Like her body performed like it was a 17 or 18-year-old.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
and I know that's a lot and I know it was so because of the reflexology that was being used.
Yeah, that's a big thing. So, another thing that which is different about working with a maternity clients. So most of my clients, they just book online. They come to me for a particular reason or relaxation, or they've had it before. But normally it's a medical a health condition that they come to me. I
Yeah.
will with maternity clients, quite different. Well, there's a few exceptions, but it is different. I will get a call out of the blue, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I need to give birth. She says, I need to give birth. I need to give birth. I'm due. I'm worried. They want to do a cesarean. They want to do this. They want to give me this and
Want to
that.
do an induction?
God, they want to do, and yeah, they
Yeah.
just, he says, I'm worried. I'm desperate. And I said, can you be there at 1 o'clock? Yes, I'll be there at 1 o'clock. So they'll come. And they are pretty much due. And I will do a specific treatment for that last stage, that those last couple of days, and she might be often overdue, or think she's about to be overdue, and she will go into labour within about 12 to 18 hours, and it will
See,
happen.
that's wonderful.
And it
And
will happen. Yeah,
yeah, and absolutely. So the thing with due dates is that there is definitely a huge, massive, mammoth misunderstanding on what that is. And
yeah,
I really wish that obstetrics would stop even referring to it as an EDD. It's yes, it says the word estimated in front, but what woman here is DD? They had due date.
it's, yeah,
And it's not. That's not what it is. It's an estimated 40-week gestation date.
yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah.
And any time from 37 to 42 weeks is normal to go
Mm,
into
mm,
spontaneous labor. You know, before 37 weeks is preterm of a
yeah,
premature baby. After 42 weeks is post dates. But I certainly see women who well, I deal with it literally every day of women who are would refer to a baby born at 38 weeks as coming 2 weeks early. No, it's not,
yeah, yeah.
right? It's due
It's
anywhere in
really,
that 5-week period,
it's really,
or that, if they are at 41 weeks, they're saying the baby's late. No, it's not. But there is a kind of misunderstanding of how to um, naturally induce into labor. And I always sort of try to explain it to women that there's two parts to the coin. Or sort of step one is the cervix needs to ripen.
yeah,
And step two, when you have a ripe cervix, then there's some triggers that you may be able to use to help induce you
yeah,
spontaneously into labor. Um, But obviously with the reflexology, if you're using it now and then sort of 24, 48 hours later, those women are starting, that's what's happening is that cervix is ripening,
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
you could,
Happening. It's
they
happening.
could do every trying to, old school, old wives' tale, old midwives' tale, um, idea of how to induce into labor. But if that cervix is not ripe or
Yeah.
ripening, it's all pointless. It's not going to
Yes, it's right.
trigger them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess when you do it, the reflexology points that you're doing are particularly focused on that ripening of the
They
cervix.
are. Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
Absolutely accurately right in there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You've got to be very precise.
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, the lovely thing about reflexology is that the body guides you as well. The feet that you're working with, which are connected to the body, it guides you, and you can see and you can feel. It's like I've got my hands on the body. If you, I can't even explain it. It's just what I do.
Because basically there's
Yeah.
in oversimplified terms, there's the feet are the reflection of the whole body, aren't they?
Well,
So
they are. They
yeah, so
are.
there's a little, there's a point or a position on everywhere on the feet that directly correlates to the rest of the body.
Well, there is. I mean, this is where all the nerve endings are in your feet. So, yeah, and that's why it works, because we're actually working with the ends of the nerves, the reflexes. It's exactly what
Do
they
you
are.
find I'm just curious from a practical
Yeah,
standpoint, because women, because circulation does get sluggish
yeah,
in pregnancies, but, they've got a lot of relaxin hormone on board,
yeah,
and there's 1.5 times the blood circulating, and
yeah,
it just can pull in those lower extremities.
yeah,
When we see edematous puffiness going on in the upper body of the woman, she overnight she wakes up and she's got no neck, and her
yeah.
hands are getting puffy and things. That's not physiological, that's pathological, and it could
Yes,
be a sign of
yeah,
preeclamptic toxemia. But getting puffy feet that when you lie down and you elevate your feet, they return to normal. That's it's just everything's kind of sluggish, right? But I'm just curious, do you find that like it's harder to like find your points when you're dealing with such puffy feet? Like, does it go, God, this one's challenging? I mean, I know that, say, with trying to sight an IV line, a cannula, when you've got a woman who's really puffy, it's
yeah,
hard to find the vein
yeah,
sometimes,
yeah, yeah.
and do you kind of find it a bit of a challenge, or does that
I
make
think,
it easier
yeah,
or harder, or not a difference?
it is a little bit, well, it's sort of all part of it, really. So I'm working. I'm expecting the feet to be puffy to a certain
Right.
extent. So I'm working with that initially a little bit, and then I'm finding the places. So I mean, the places are still there, but it's more about technique and the way I hold, because when I am touching someone's feet, I don't have to press hard. I'm just touching a point, and I might be touching another point as well, or a third or fourth point as well, but I don't have to press hard. I'm just engaging with that reflex, with that nerve ending, and I'm waiting for a response. Response is coming from the body. Okay. So I'm holding and I'm just waiting, because it's not a quick thing, reflexology. You don't go round and round and round and round and round and round until it's all done. I just hold and I wait and I listen sometimes, but then I feel that response come back, and then I get some, and then I know it's working, and then it's happening, and then the body's responding, and then it's talking to me. It's a communication thing, Kathy. That's kind of how I do it. Yeah. It's the same as how I treat anybody at all for anything at all. But when we have puffy feet, we just might have to wait a wee bit longer. And
Right. So
fingers
the
might have to
response is
hold for a
a
bit
little
more.
sluggish.
Yeah, yeah. But when we talk about pathological edema as well, there could be a lot of other reasons why she may have edema, and you've got to be mindful of that. So I sometimes I would not use that same techniques, or I I might not do that time, you know. So we have to think about that. We're talking about around the neck or something like that. There's techniques that I can do on the feet that will help lymphatic system in general terms and just moving it through. And that makes a big difference if you can move your neck, you know. Yeah, big difference. So I mean, it can get stuck in all the major lymph nodes throughout the body. So it's releasing all of that and just helping it flow. It's just getting back to the normal functioning.
I certainly think that if the healthcare system around the world, where it's insurance companies and private obstetric care, or whether it's state funded in socialistic countries, you know, either way, boy, if every single woman, you know, in that postpartum period was, you know, was entitled to receive, you know, half a dozen reflexology treatments or something, oh my goodness, it would just have such a huge positive impact.
I know.
Yeah,
It's so good, you know. Certainly in other parts of the world, reflexology in maternity settings is very, very common. We struggle here in New Zealand, I have to say. We struggle with
what are
that.
some of the, because of course our audience is global, what
Yeah,
are the that's interesting. So
yeah.
what countries is it more
Certainly in the UK and England, I think Scotland, Wales, yeah, it's very common. Certain parts of Europe, the certain I know where I think certain parts of the Middle East as well, where it's quite common. It's quite common to have the reflexologist in the birthing suite. It's quite common, but you know, I just would love to see that here. I would love to see that here. We're not seeing it. There's so many things that we're not, like reflexology and within we're talking about real integration
integrative
healthcare.
healthcare?
No, so that's what really I'm working towards. But wouldn't that be wonderful if that could be here? But I know that it happens overseas. I know it happens.
Yeah, certainly.
It's more accepted. It's in the it's engaging with the public health system as well, and with the private and with the insurance companies. But
and some of those countries, you know, the cities within UK and Europe also are huge advocates or users of homeopathy.
yes, yeah.
So, you know, you've got whole hospitals in London that are homeopathic hospitals, and
Yeah.
they're all respected, and nobody's thinking that there's some crazy pseudoscience.
Yeah.
And so there is generally a bit more of an open-mindedness, certainly we sort of find in UK and Europe,
Yeah.
and a very closed-mindedness in North America.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is there's nightmares going on here
I think
with their maternity health care, that's for sure. Yeah.
I think that I see because I always say to people that this is complementary, it's not alternative. I always stress it's complementary and it's integrative. And there's after practicing for quite a number of years, there are a lot of people that come through my door here that are pretty high up in the public health system, if you like. They're pretty high up. They're under a lot of stress. They're not managing very well. They can see where changes need to be made. I'm really being really careful about what I'm saying here, but I need, you know what I'm saying? So I get a lot of people who are working professionally at a very high level in the public health sector. They come here. And I think that says a lot, actually. And the more that happens, and the more we can talk about it, and the more we can say to people, you know, this is, I actually say to people, if you want to be fixed, go to a surgeon. If you want to be healed, come to me. You know, because if this is about healing, it's not about fixing. You know,
I love that differentiation.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful.
It's about healing. It's about allowing your body to start remembering it can heal itself. because it knows it. It's just forgotten
It
because all
does, and
these
the
things
body
have come
is
on top of it.
fighting to do that all the time. It's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
trying to heal
yeah,
itself. And sometimes, there can be an imbalance of that. And that's, where we see things like, as you say, autoimmune disease
yeah,
or asthma or eczema things. These are overreactions. This is the body kind of overcompensating, and it needs to get back into that homeostatic equilibrium.
yeah.
But all the time, the body's trying to heal, trying to heal, trying to fix, trying to
Yes,
heal.
it is. Yeah.
Um,
And it's
Now,
very difficult with the pharmaceutical, if they're on medication. It's wanting to mask that all the time.
yes, dealing with the
Hard.
reducing symptoms instead of treating the
Yeah,
cause. Oh
yeah,
my God, we could talk
yeah,
for hours on that one. Um, Yvonne McDonald, one of the somebody here live, has sort of made the comment that maybe mums could ask reflexologists to be with them in labour. Absolutely, and a
yeah,
lot do. That's
yeah,
often it's not a. I would sort of refer to it as a birth support crew. It's shouldn't. I mean, oftentimes the partner is there, and most of the times the partner is male, and if there's one thing that he's not done, it's given birth.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and oftentimes the woman has never ever attended a labor in her life. She's
yeah,
never seen a baby be born. So these guys come in with no experience,
yeah,
and yet they're supposed to be, knowing what they're doing. And some oftentimes having, an experienced a woman who has experienced multiple births can be so valuable to have on your birth support crew.
yeah,
It could be a girlfriend or a sister or a sister-in-law, or maybe the mother or grandmother. They, some of them are wonderful, some of them are
yeah,
nightmares. um and but also having along your naturopathic holistic healers in there as well.
yeah.
And yeah, I
I
mean,
think, yeah,
having a reflexology, I mean, the the problem with it is that the reflexologists need to basically be on call. So they'll could
yes,
get woken up
yeah,
at 3 in the morning,
yeah,
just like a midwife. It's time to go in, the labor's all on. It
yeah,
usually happens at 3 in the morning. That's the most popular time. um, and yeah, so not all reflexologists perhaps want to be on call like a midwife
yeah, yeah,
or a doula, and a lot of doulas
yeah.
have reflexology training as well,
Oh,
don't
absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
they?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's very,
So
very important part of it. Kathy, I just wanted to share a couple of stories.
please do, and then we'll sort of at times. So yeah,
Yeah,
please
just a
share the
couple of
stories, and we will wind things up.
yeah, a couple of really nice stories. One of them was I treated a lady who was trying to get pregnant. So I do see quite a few for, they say, oh, we really want to have another baby. We're hoping you can help us with that type of thing. So I do see people who have had some infertility issues and stuff like that. But a couple of stories. So one lady, I hardly remembered saying this, but I actually went into a cafe several years later, and she introduced me to her young son. And her young son might have been about 6 or 7, and she said, "Oh, she says, oh look, this is Kirsty. She said to Mummy that I was pregnant with you before Mummy even knew." So, and I don't think it was quite like that, because I wouldn't have, but because you can't. But she likes to have that story, and she likes to tell her young son that. That was a funny wee thing. But another one was somebody that I saw throughout the entirety of her pregnancy, and also prior to that, when she was undergoing IVF and several rounds of IVF. And so had quite a close relationship with her. And I we used to always have music on, and I'd be at her house. So have the music, and she would choose the music, and we'd start to sing along, and we'd do a bit of singing, and we'd do a bit of talking, and that type of thing. And I'll tell you something, when I met that wee girl, she knew my voice. That wee girl knew my voice. And she was probably about 3 months, 2 or 3 months when I met her in our world. And she just looked at me with wonder, and she was completely calm. She went like that, it was just a recognition of the voice.
Yes, and that voice was
Amazing.
associated with pleasure and
Yeah,
calmness,
yeah,
and tranquility,
yeah,
and she heard that voice again.
yeah.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
babies here, I mean, most people watching this would know that, but a baby's hearing is adept very early in the pregnancy,
Mm,
and when babies are born, they have the best hearing they'll have in their whole life. It's unlike
mm,
sight, which of
amazing.
course continues to develop for them. Things are fuzzy and things become clearer as they get older. But their hearing is acute and way better than our hearing,
Oh, right.
because it's never been used. It's virgin
I
eardrums
didn't know
for the
that.
baby. Yeah.
I didn't know
And
that.
the thing with hearing is the more we use it, the more worn out it becomes.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And my husband is a carpenter, and so we know lots of other carpenters and other subbies, and they're all in their late 50s, and they're all getting hearing aids
Yes, yeah, yeah,
because their hearing has just been so used.
yeah.
And it's that question of, do you work in a do you work in a work environment where you have to yell to be heard? My husband's like, yeah, I've done that
Yeah,
for like more than 40 years.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
our babies, yeah, when they're born, they have their perfect, completely mature, best hearing they'll have in their lives.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, the difference will be that when they're in utero, everything's a little muffled,
yeah,
because of the waters and the muscle and the
yeah.
adipose tissue and things. So that baby, when it recognized you, would not have just recognized that, oh my God, I know that voice, but also it would have felt a little miraculous that, like, oh, I'm hearing the voice not muffled.
Oh, and
Like,
that would
oh my
explain
God,
the
I'm hearing
absolute
it
look of
crystal
wonder on
clear.
your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So that's
funny.
really cool.
Yeah, and there's another story that I guess I can tell you now, following on from that. And this actually happened to me when I was a baby. So with my name, Van Rooyen, Dutch, but I'm part Hungarian. So several generations back on my father's side, they were Dutch, okay, from the Netherlands.
Right.
So I still have relations there. Um, I was conceived in Holland. Okay, my mother took great pride in telling me all lots of things about it, like, dear, would you like this pink blanket? You were conceived on this pink blanket. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. But in any case, she was pregnant when when mum and dad were visiting my aunt and uncle and grandparents in the Netherlands, where they were living at the time after the war forced them out of Hungary. So that's where they were living, in the Netherlands. My uncle married a lovely Dutch lady. So my mother is often with this my auntie, who was Dutch, and the whole family would be talking in Dutch and all the rest of it. Well, so when my parents came back, and my mum came back carrying me in her tummy all the way back to Dunedin, Christchurch, it actually was in New Zealand, on the ship, which took, I don't know, 6 weeks or whatever. I was born here in New Zealand. So first time I went to Europe, I was 40, and I was in that kitchen with those same people, and I recognized the voice. And it's like I felt it.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? But it
Imprinted.
was noticeable, it was remarkable. Now, Dutch wasn't spoken in our house at all. We didn't have any Dutch friends. We didn't have anybody from my father's family at all in New Zealand. He was Hungarian. If he'd spoken anything, it would have been Hungarian, not Dutch anyway. He only lived in the Netherlands for 3 years while he was at university. So we knew no Dutch people. I was not brought up hearing the Dutch language. And the first time I'd heard it spoken was there in my auntie's kitchen with my other family
And
around.
how
And I
pregnant
knew it.
was your mum when she left Holland?
How, sorry?
How pregnant was your mum with you when she left Holland? I'm wondering how
Probably
much.
7 months.
Oh my God, she was well pregnant. And then she went on a 6-week boat trip,
Yeah,
heavily pregnant.
yeah.
She could have had the baby
Oh, could have been
on the
even
boat.
could have been even closer than that, because I think they might have arrived back in October and I was born in December. Yeah, so it would have been about that.
Right. Yeah. So you'd had, yeah, that's just, I was
Yeah, and
interesting. So you
I
had
never
quite a
get
few
seasick.
months of listening to
Yeah.
these voices. It is amazing.
So speaking
Well,
of
we
the
do need to
speaking of
wind
the boat
things
trip,
up. But
yeah,
is there anything else that you'd like to add before we conclude today?
just speaking of the boat trip back, I never get seasick. I never get seasick. So I was being carried all the way back, floating. Upon floating, never get seasick. Anything else I'd like? Anything else I'd like to add? I think I'm just keen to promote this modality in terms of people knowing that there is help here.
Oh, actually, let's talk about that
Yeah.
before we conclude. Do just let the audience know your contact information. That would
Oh,
be great.
sure. So
Yeah.
I have a website which is www.ajugahealth.co.nz. That's AJUGAHEALTH.co.nz.
You want to just respell the word again?
AJUGA, Ajuga. So it's like the plant. If you Google me, you'll find it.
Right.
Really
Cool.
good website. People can book online. A very easy booking system. There's information on the website. It's a pretty good place to start.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kirsty. It's been very appreciated, your time, and it's always nice to have our live audience here as well. And yeah, so just here at Inco, we just want to wish everybody a wonderful rest of their week. And thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for those that came in here live. And we'll say farewell. So thank you, Kirsty, and bye, everybody.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
See
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Bye. Thanks for